I want every member to introduce themselves right now.
Caroline O'Neill.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Caroline is on twice, which is causing that echo.
I agree with you. I just went off. Oh, wait a minute.
So Caroline O'Neill is on. Next,
Michelle Durance.
Nancy DeLuca.
Jackie Wiseman.
Jen Starr.
We also have Dr. Alicia Cabral, Assistant Superintendent Kristen Pruitt, and Lynn Souza, Alicia's secretary. Okay, administrative assistant. And we also have Jason Daniels from ECAT with us. Okay,
Christy,
Yes.
can you mute one of Caroline's?
Okay.
I left it. It should be gone on that. It should be.
Yes,
okay.
it is. It's gone.
I'm going to turn this over now to Dr. Cabral.
Okay, thank you. So you should be able to see the slides on the screen, the Easton School Committee meeting for this evening. I have the agenda listed for us, and there should be transitions so that Chair DeLuca will be aware of when to advance. So first, we'll be calling the meeting to order. I believe, Chair, you are going to go over the procedures for how to run this virtual meeting. We'll have a COVID-19 update, discussion regarding vendor payments, potentially modifying the school calendar, the Eastern Educators Association Memorandum of Agreement, which calls for a joint labor management committee representative, individual notes, and then adjournment.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Per state of emergency, the state of emergency brought on by COVID-19 pandemic, public bodies can meet remotely. Governor Baker made this rule on March 12th. Eastern boards with essential business will meet during the state of emergency to maximize social distancing. For regular meetings, in contrast to legal hearings, the public may submit written questions via the chat feature to Town of Easton 2 during the meeting, or use the Q&A feature of Zoom if and when instructed to do so by the chair. Questions must include your name and address, as the question and response from the town will be incorporated into the public record via minutes. The chair reserves the right to discard questions that are off topic, do not include name and address, or if the meeting is concluding. Questions will be answered as soon as possible, as practicable. All votes by the committee will be conducted by roll call. Dr. Cabral.
Thank you. I'll start with the COVID-19 update. This just gives you an indication of the trajectory of cases. Very, very similar. If you compare these side by side with Massachusetts and the United States, you will see that we begin a trajectory on March 23rd that brings us to last Thursday. As of Thursday, there were 38 confirmed cases in Easton. I do know on my call this morning with town officials that there have been a few more cases, so this trajectory continues. You can see that there was quite a significant switch. I don't know, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see on the 13th here, this was our last day of school. And so we began social distancing as a district here. And then of course, you can see over the course of the last 3 weeks how that has advanced. I want to give you an idea of what we did as a school system in snapshots of weeks. Prior to the closure, the first correspondence that was sent out was on February 27th. This was to the community. It included information on the 27th. We had some preliminary information about general hygiene for people. We began an education campaign for children in the schools with posters and tutorials on how to wash their hands and keep their areas clean. We provided information from the CDC, and hygiene recommendations were sent home as well. On March 11th, I sent a notification to the EPS community, that's parents and staff. And we were announcing that we were going to be canceling schools for 2 weeks, but all events indefinitely. And then on 13, on March 13th, we sent home a great deal of resources and information, which included how families who were food sensitive could realize food services and how they could make donations, childcare services. We had extended learning opportunities up there. The Friday we left school, they were on there that evening from pre-K to 12. We then were scrambling because we had to, some staff are paid through revenue, such as tuitions, fees, athletics, for example, and some are paid through grants, which typically you cannot use for services that are not rendered. So we had to first figure out how we could continue paying all staff members. We also sent out a special education letter for those who were most vulnerable, and we put out a press release. Also this week, things that were canceled. On March 4th, I canceled all international travel. On March 11th, everything outside of Easton, any large gatherings within Easton, parent volunteers were asked to cease participating. All facilities used by outside community groups and paying groups were stopped, and sports were relegated only to small practices or anything attended just by parents, and they were only local, anything within the community. And then March 13th, everything was canceled, shut down for 2 weeks. That was the last day of school, and all events were canceled indefinitely. So just to give you an idea, this advanced extremely quickly, as I'm sure you remember. So then the very next week, I'm calling week 1, this was the first week that students were out of school. And the focus for this week was mitigation and care of our students, most especially our neediest populations. You can see that during this week, on the very first day, we sent out a community update that explained the governor's closure. So that happened the weekend that we had canceled school. Right after that, the governor had announced a closure that extended the 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And then we sent information to staff. On March 16th, the very next day, we set up daily and weekly meetings with the following organizations. I won't read all of them to you. We maintain those weekly and daily meetings until now, and they are ongoing. On March 20th, a comprehensive update and list of frequently asked questions was sent to families and staff. So everyone in the district received answers to all the questions I had received up to that point. Also, as a district, everyone came together, and from the 16th to the 20th, we were able to disinfect all classrooms in schools. Staff was able to come in and collect their belongings and resources by schedule. Chromebook distribution was made to all staff. Information regarding social distancing was sent out. That included our outdoor facilities. We were able to dispense medication to all students in the district that either were potentially not going to be able to have a supply of medication for the extended closure, or it may be something that would have expired during the closure. So nurses were able to set that up with parents. We were able to coordinate with the Easton Food Pantry, and we had several volunteers that came and actually volunteered in the pantry, as well as coordinated with them for our families to come and pick up food. All payroll was moved online. That was previously something that couldn't be done online. We had that completed within the first week. Our special education students that are outplaced all had to be, we had to follow up on all of them. Daycare centers or day placements were, by the end of the week, all of them were closed. Residential were still open, and we needed to make sure that they were safe transitions for students back to their homes. And we also sent out a staff volunteer list. Again, this is in the first week. I just want to, you're going to hear a common thread throughout this is exactly how the staff has responded in light of this crisis. And the very first week I sent out a staff list to solicit volunteers, and within a day we had over 75 volunteers, and they keep coming in. And then, of course, we closed all the facilities to the public because we found that even though the schools were closed, people were continually using the playground facilities, which was it's considered a huge conductor of the virus, and even the outside fields because there were some contact sports taking place like soccer, lacrosse, and the like. So we closed all the outdoor facilities, locked everything up, and the Board of Health actually put up signs that the facilities were closed. So that happened in the first 5 days of school closure. In the second week, we really focused on stability and connections. Now that students had been home for 5 days, we wanted to make sure we were able to make contact with every single one of them to be sure that they were safe. We have not only food sensitive families, we have families that are struggling with domestic violence. We have families that are struggling with mental health issues, whether it's the parents or the students. And we wanted to make sure we made those connections. We asked staff to reach out to any student that they regularly work with. That should have meant and did mean that every student was contacted by multiple adults in the buildings. So that was everything from classroom teachers to paraprofessionals to service providers, administrators, the school nurses, clerical aides. Everyone was asked to reach out to students that they might be concerned about or that they work with on a regular basis. So students received multiple contacts. From the 23rd to the 24th, the daily and weekly meetings continued, of course. We had food service, industrial out, and nursing supplies were all collected. The custodians were fantastic. The nurses were great. Industrial arts. Everybody was able to collect goggles, gloves, surgical masks, N95 masks, and thermometers. And we donated all of that. I coordinated with the chief and we set up a small warehouse area for them where they could come and collect any of those resources as they need it as this crisis continues, which turned out to be extremely helpful because we were hit right at the moment that supplies were very difficult to secure and they were left with very small inventory for sure. We did the inventory with the Easton Fire Department. We delivered Chromebooks to students throughout the district. Dozens those first couple of days, and then for several days after, we made home deliveries to any students that were identified as potentially being in need of connection. The social emotional checks I discussed. Google Meet and Google Classroom videos and tutorials were pushed out because in a very short amount of time, people were using them who had never used them before. Expanded enrichment activities were uploaded. So the activities that were uploaded literally the Friday that we left school, we had another upload for all content areas. And there were also additions that were social, emotional, and wellness connections were added to that as well. Staff videos, competitions, and engagement. Again, our message to staff and really our concern was stability and connections. The staff, of course, took it 10 steps further. So from the very first day we were out of school, staff were reaching out to students. They know they did not need to be encouraged by us, but we did make a formal push starting that very first week. But I think many of you saw, whether it was on Twitter or whether your own children were contacted, or whether you saw videos that were being pushed out, or even on our website, we're collecting as much as we can so it can be sort of a one-stop area for people to see. That staff were creating videos, they were engaging in Spirit Week and competitions and engaging kids in activities that they could do, reading books. And it was humbling because I talk an awful lot about how wonderful our staff is. And indeed, the only reason we have the success we have in this district is because of our staff, and this was no exception. They absolutely rose to the occasion. We did full curriculum leadership planning as well. So in terms of academics, we knew that starting the next Monday, we wanted to launch a full online learning platform. And so from pre-K to 12, every content area and every grade, we coordinated weekly plans. So as you can imagine, doing all of that, none of it in person, a great deal of electronic communication had to be organized by a lot of people who hadn't used some of these things before. And I can say that as of Friday that week, everything was completely done for every grade level and every class. IEP meetings were also held to make sure that students' individual education plans did not fall behind. So in addition to that, what were we able to complete in that very first that second 5 days out of school? The Grab and Go program became fully operational. It operates now on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays behind Richardson Olmsted from 9 to 11 in the morning. Food donations happen every Monday in front of Richardson Olmsted. Chromebook distribution now for anybody that doesn't have connectivity now, we have these available in the front of Richardson Olmsted for students that sign up for it. We added veteran and internet services for free services onto our website as resources. The nurses, all of our nurses are helping the Board of Health in their efforts. They have state mandated efforts to contact anyone who has been tested for COVID or who is suffering from COVID-19. They follow them through the process. They give them information. They check in on them. So they're helping with that effort because the two people who are marvelous working at the Board of Health were completely overwhelmed by the number of cases and the number of calls that have to be done. All the classrooms were disinfected in all school buildings and the schools were closed down. And then we added more communications. As I said, every single grade and content area met and completed their remote learning plans. The COVID-19 website was completed. So now as soon as someone logs on to Easton Public Schools, in the center of the page, there's a red button that says COVID-19, and all of the information you're seeing here, everything that's been pushed out to parents, it's all on that one page as a collection for people, including past emails and newsletters. We completed a memorandum of agreement with Easton Educators Association that went very well. It was very cooperative. And our English language learner families were contacted. Each of them was, English language teachers reached out to them to make sure that they could access all of the communications we were providing. And then we collected more information about translations that were needed. And then the frequently asked questions that had been sent out the week before were updated for both faculty and for families. Again, all of this information is on the district website. In the third week, our primary concern was the online learning routine. Excuse me. So making sure that this learning now became live. After 10 days of not being in school, learning was now live, online for students, available to everyone, coordinated by grade and class. And therefore the week, as of the first week, it came out Monday morning, but consequently it's coming out every Sunday night. On March 30th, the remote learning plans were launched. Special education services and therapies began. The daily and weekly meetings continued, of course. The website links became live and everything was updated. School committee presented a message, which right now is on the head of that page. And the Commissioner of Education reached out to families, and his letter is also located on that page. Throughout the rest of the week, we compiled a list district-wide of students who after 10 days had not been contacted or who had been contacted by multiple modalities but had not responded. And we have our SRO doing physical wellness checks on those students. We have a concern of anybody that we are not able to contact after 10 days. And so he is currently engaged in those wellness checks for us. We created and distributed remote learning technology protocols for everyone in the district. So now there are protocols for student use that is appropriate technology protocol whenever they are engaging in an online class or activities. The MOA was approved, and there were many, many school events, competitions, et cetera, that were underway. Again, whether you saw those on Twitter, whether they were emailed, videos, just incredible level of engagement with students and a great deal of sensitivity to the fact that there was a sense of loss for students and trying to create as much of a routine as possible for them. Also, the tasks completed. All staffs, departments, and grades pre-K to 12, again, have had meetings, coordinated meetings. There are, for example, kindergarten meetings, art meetings, guidance department meetings, staff meetings by school, leadership team meetings. These are happening every day of the week. April calendar feedback, one of the agenda items on little bit further today is the April calendar decision. And we were able to secure feedback from everyone online that we have been communicating with. Also, the House of Representatives passed a bill and we were able to analyze that online. I'll talk a little bit about that bill this evening. The PD site was completed. It wasn't put out live, but a tremendous amount of work was done under the leadership of Chrissy Pruitt. Every content area, every role, including wellness and enrichment, has professional development allocated to it. So this entire week, the third week that we were out, she organized professional development for all of these areas: custodians, nurses, service providers, teachers, paraprofessionals. Everything is on one site. It gives them the opportunity to not only engage in things that might help them with this online learning, like tutorials about technology, but we also wanted to offer them some videos and articles about wellness. Our staff is working from home as well. So the parents that are having difficulty working with their students, helping their students at home, our teachers are dealing with that same situation. Our educators, all of them, service providers, paraprofessionals, they are trying to teach their own students with their homeschooling efforts. They are preparing for our students. They're working full time. So we want to make sure that they're taking care of themselves as well. Not to mention, we have staff members who are ill. We have staff members who are taking care of aged parents, who are volunteering in town, as I mentioned earlier. And then finally, we sent information, we added information to our website. We had, based on the information from the English language families, we had translations of the documents completed in 7 different languages. We were communicating with families. The state is issuing EBT debit cards for families. And we even launched a positivity and gratitude campaign, which again can be seen on the district website. And many people have been participating in that. So again, this is the first, these are 15 days out of school. This week, we provided remote learning update. The meetings are continuing, of course. The staff professional development went live. So this is an opportunity for all staff to participate in professional development if they can at this point or when they are ready to. The town, we forwarded census information. While it's probably not on everybody's minds right now, when I get to the budget a little bit later, I think we're going to see that we have some significant impacts coming our way next year. One of the ways we can mitigate that is simply completing the census. We found that many of our, in investigating some of our entitlement grants, we found that many of them, we don't think we're getting what is Easton's fair share. And much of that we realized was based on the 2010 census results and non-participation. So we really want to encourage as many people to participate that as possible. This 2020 census is going to set the stage for the next 10 years of federal and state grant funding for us. And so it's extremely important. So we did send out information about that. We also sent out some special education staff information and guidelines. All of these documents, all of this work is being created before it's being pushed out. We've also been working with vendors and contracts. We have 2 transportation vendors we're working with, school planning committee. These are all projects that are ongoing that we need to keep moving. April 7th, of course, is our school committee meeting this evening. Other things that will be completed this week, the weekly learning plans are in continuation, PD's opportunities and expectations. And we're also in the process of creating face shields with our 3D printers for the fire department. We're working on vendor negotiations. We are working on what has very disappointingly been termed the disaster budget preparation. And we're going to provide a community update by the end of the week. Are there any questions on the first 4 weeks? As you can see at the top, the focus this week has turned to trying to create a sense of normalcy for our children with these sort of extracurricular events, with positivity campaigns, with routines in their learning and professional development for staff, but also as a district perspective, our turn to the budget, because we now need to consider the impacts on the budget we're in right now, as well as what it's going to mean to our budget next year. So were there any questions about these first 4 weeks?
Caroline, do you have a question?
Oh, I forgot I was first. No, I just find it incredibly impressive how much you've accomplished and how wonderfully everyone has come together to ensure that those accomplishments took place.
Thank you. It was truly a team effort. And I have to say, every area of the staff, like I said before, rose to the occasion. I will not be able to say it enough this evening. I think that the Easton community has a lot to be proud of with the staff and administration that they have working in Easton. We have been contacted by many communities to model what we're doing in their communities. We're sharing what we have readily for others to make use of, and we're providing a model for others to follow. I think we're able to not only accomplish a remarkable amount of work in a very short period of time, but it was all done remotely. And I believe it was done with a great deal of quality. I'm very proud of it, and I'm very proud of everything that everyone accomplished.
Well, we're very proud of Leisha Cabral and Chrissy Pruitt, I would say. I mean, the two of you coordinated everything, and it's really been a masterful effort. Okay,
Well,
you can
thank you
move
for
on.
that, but it truly is a team effort. It really is.
Michelle?
Okay.
As a parent, I can appreciate and am very thankful for everything that from Leisha on down through administration to the teachers. A tremendous amount of ground has been covered in 4 weeks. As a fellow educator in a different district, I can really appreciate the amount of work, effort, coordination, and everything, rethinking how you educate children on a dime, on very, very little notice. And I just kudos to you all from teachers on up. It's just, that's an amazing feat.
Okay. And I also would like to echo Michelle's thoughts that all the staff, you know, everybody, like you had talked about, Leisha, with the custodians cleaning up the schools with probably, I don't know if they had protection, I hope they did. But, you know, the nurses, the paras, the special ed staff, everybody, the faculty, and then doing this remote learning, this is quite a thing. And a lot of parents are like, whoo, I don't remember doing this when I was in school. So I think everybody's doing a great job. And the administrative team, of course, putting this all together is very good. Jackie.
Yeah, thank you for putting out this information. On this side of it, it's hard to know what was involved in all of this. And it's been very interesting to see everything that you and the entire team had to do. It's an incredible amount of work, and we really appreciate how much time and effort you've put into it, and trying to take care of your own families too. As a parent trying to do the homeschooling thing, I know I've been very appreciative of the schedules that have come up that have given me a little more guidance on what to do and a little more structure for my child as well. That's made a huge difference. So thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I guess just echoing what everybody else has already said, seeing this all together, page after page of all the work that had to be done, I think is really, it's so impressive. I think even being as close as we are to the district and having been in touch with you guys throughout this process, seeing it all together is really overwhelming. You've done an incredible job. And as a parent, you know, I've been able to connect with, you know, my fellow parents on social media and Facebook and Twitter. And, you know, we're all trying to figure this out. And there's so many ups and downs. And I think the one piece that's really falling into place is educating our kids. And that's thanks to your leadership. So it's a huge help from a parent perspective to have a plan in place that's thoughtful and thorough and really, you know, understands this unprecedented situation that we're all in. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, we're going to go on to our next item, which is discussion of regarding the vendor payments. Dr.
Okay.
Cabral?
Thank you. So we have, one of the things I mentioned earlier in our list was, we had to start thinking of things we don't typically think about to move everything online. I mean, even just to move payroll online was quite a feat for the business department. But one of the things we obviously have to be cognizant of are Massachusetts laws. And Chapter 41, Section 56 is very clear in its delineation that we can only pay for services rendered. So immediately, we kind of went down our list of employees within the district. Our primary concern after making sure that we stabilized all of our students and staff was to make sure that all our staff was going to continue getting paid. And we know that not all payments come out of our operating budget. Many of our staff members are paid from grants. Many of our staff members are paid from revenue that's generated, as I said earlier, whether that's tuitions or fees or facilities rentals or the food that we sell. And so we really had to scramble to make sure that we could get, Chrissy had to contact the state, make sure that we could keep paying our state grant employees, which is most of our paraprofessionals and almost all of our interventionists, just to give an idea of how many people that would be. It's close to 100 employees. And one other area that we're continuing to have some difficulty with are our transportation vendors. So we just wanted to keep you updated on this. We have paid our transportation vendors up to and including March 13th. The problem is that based on Chapter 41, we're not allowed to pay when there isn't a service rendered. So our food service, for example, we have them working in our grab and go program. So we can continue to pay them because services are being rendered. Whereas the bus drivers are obviously not driving our children. So we have been getting legal counsel, and we put in a phone call again this morning. We're waiting for some updates. Our counsel to date has said that we cannot pay for these services because we're violating this law. We've had several phone calls directly with the Department of Education's business head of the business department, with the commissioner himself. And while the commissioner encourages us to try to keep paying as many employees as possible, no one's really been able to help us get around this Chapter 41 issue yet. So it's something that we're still looking at. The implications, of course, are that we don't have a contract for next year yet. It does not behoove us clearly to have either of our vendors go out of business as a result of this. We are encouraged by the fact that there are some Small Business Administration loans and forgiveness programs that are starting to happen. We're hoping that there'll be some federal subsidies or state subsidies for these businesses. We just don't know yet. Until we can get confirmation from legal counsel that we're allowed to pay for these services, we're holding off, because obviously we don't want to violate the law, and we don't want someone to come after the funds later. So we're investigating this further. We're working with our fellow superintendents that make use of these vendors. We're in constant communication with both of the vendors. They, as you can imagine, they believe that we should continue our payments because they obviously want to stay in business to serve us when or if we go back to school this year. But again, there's this legal issue that we're looking out for. So the one area that we aren't continuing to pay for right now would be transportation. All other employees are still employed, except for in our food service department. The Whitson's employees are not our employees. The food service employees that work for us are getting paid, and they're working grab and go. The Whitson's employees, I believe, are collecting unemployment. They're not our employees. Other than that, we're able to pay all of our employees right now. I just want to explain something. You may be seeing that some school districts are falling into a situation where they are furloughing staff or they are laying off staff. I can't say 100% that won't happen to us, but we're doing everything we can to avoid that. School finance is extremely complicated, so I'm not trying to infantilize anyone by breaking this down to its simplest form. But to put it simply, we have approximately 80% of our budget goes to paying salaries. But that doesn't pay for all of our salaries. As I said before, some comes from grants, some comes from revenue streams. So 80% is delegated right off the bat to salaries. And that doesn't change throughout the course of the year because we know how much each person's getting when school starts. And that if we're going to keep paying them, then that's going to be depleted by the end of the year. That leaves us 20% of our budget to work with. That 20% is for everything other than paying for staff. That includes paper, ink, paper towels, cleaning supplies, everything you can imagine that is bought at a school, paper clips, literally everything. Now, by mid-March, most of that normally is depleted because it is rationed out throughout the year. So we're left with maybe less than 10%, or certainly less than 10% of the budget. Now we're at a point where kindergarten, pre-kindergarten teachers and staff are 50% paid with tuition payments. And then we have coaches who are paid with our revolving account from athletics, which includes athletic fees. We have food service, which is paid for with the food that is purchased. We had other revenue coming in that helped pay for interventionists. For example, we have 3 classrooms that are rented out to a collaborative. There are just other revenue streams coming in that we now don't have. The facilities use. Many youth organizations, even church groups, community groups, they use our facilities and they pay to use the facilities. May is a huge dance month, for example, and our auditoriums are always used, our cafeterias are used, and it's a great stream of revenue for us that we use to help pay for some of our staff. The reason I'm describing that is because that revenue has stopped. And because it has stopped, we now have to use that less than 10% to try to pay for those people that are not in the operating budget. So if we wish to keep paying everyone until the end of the year, we really don't know how long that is going to last. So as of right now, as I said before, we're paying all staff. We don't know if this is going to end May 6th. I have a sense it will be longer than May 6th, but I don't know how much longer. So that is something that we're paying attention to. So that's part of our concern about our FY20 budget. It seems as though, well, those people were budgeted, they should be all set. Well, they were budgeted on the premise that we were still receiving revenue because COVID does not typically happen. There's usually, no one who works now can say in their entire lifetime that they've ever experienced something like this. So it's not something anybody would ever plan for. For 100 years, we've been paying for people this way. So it is a consideration. It is a concern. It is something that we're looking at for the rest of the year, just so that you're aware.
Okay.
Are there any questions about the vendor, the transportation vendors, or why we're not paying those right now?
This is Jen. Do we know? I know that, say, for out of district special ed transportation, those costs can be extremely, extremely high. Do we have a sense for how much per week, say, or, for the past, for a 4-week period or any period of time that's predictable, how much this is not costing us? If they end up not getting paid at all?
I think ultimately there is going to need to be a negotiation. The problem is it depends on the vendor.
Mm-hmm.
We are going everything from wanting 100% to less than 50%. And obviously, well, we have a difference of opinion there because fuel's not being used, repairs are not being made. I don't know if insurance is being paid. There's more investigation that needs to be done. So we will definitely do a comprehensive negotiation, but as of now, we can't even negotiate this because of the way that the law is written. But if we are given the permission to go forward, if they relieve us of that because of this crisis, we would then also have to do an intense negotiation. Now, obviously, any vendor is going to tell you that they have fixed costs in terms of their leases or their full-time employees, accounting, and so forth. So I really don't have a figure for you yet because we've never parceled it out to that extent before. It's always been, you know, they give you a price for the year based on all of those. We also don't know, like I was saying before, if they're going to be receiving federal subsidies or loan forgiveness.
Yep.
That could all work into it. So it's going to be very complex.
Okay.
But I don't have a figure right now. But the budget itself is over $1 million for the year, for the school year. So it's a large amount of money.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that.
This is Jackie. So 2 questions. First is, obviously other districts are dealing with this same issue. Have the superintendents been talking to their legislators? Has there been any movement at the State House on this? Is this even coming up, or are they just backburnering this?
Everybody's talking about it, but nobody has made a determination about this yet. Again, we were at first advised, nobody pay. You'll be violating the law. And then the most recent communication from the commissioner was that he encouraged us to find ways to keep people working. And to be honest with you, I did try, spoke to the town. I talked to my own team about perhaps having bus drivers deliver food, deliver supplies, really try to get them working, but there just has not been that level of need yet.
Okay.
Without services provided, it is sort of tying our hands right now. But I would expect some other costs to be expected from the vendors. So it's not as though this will be a windfall, excuse me, of savings for us, unfortunately.
My second question, and you may get into this more when we talk about the budget. So this 10% that's now being reallocated to pay for our staff, are there things that was being used for that had to be completely stopped, that were on the more essential side, things that are hard to stop paying for that?
No, so that would have been, that would have been any realized savings, for example, paper that's not being used for this month, paper products, supplies that aren't being used for this month, cleaning supplies that aren't being used for this month.
Okay.
However, we also have some costs that we're going to have to accrue that we're going to be responsible for before we go back to school. So for example, typically we receive federal funding for free and reduced students to get lunch. They're telling us now, just feed anybody that shows up and we'll help you later. If we don't receive that money, we're purchasing a lot of food, over 100 meals a day. And then we completely depleted all of our health supplies. We wouldn't be able to open school without gloves, thermometers, surgical masks. So there's a great deal of supplies that certainly aren't in next year's budget. And whether there will be relief from that, I don't know. Typically after any disaster relief that I've ever participated in, we sometimes got payment 3 years after. So it's not immediate relief. So it's something we need to keep in mind. And budget is not actually on the agenda tonight, but under superintendent notes, I am talking about the House bill. And so that's why I'm going to talk about budget a little bit there. I know this got a little bit off topic, but it's related. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, Caroline or Michelle, any questions?
No,
No, I just find the whole discussion pretty overwhelming, but, you know, I know that you're really on top of all of these things, Chrissy, so I appreciate that. And it's really very helpful to have this information because I think a lot of people kind of don't necessarily understand fully some of the kind of intricacies of things like vendor payments and how things are funded and so on. So it was actually very helpful to have that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so if there isn't going to be a budget discussion, I just wanted to ask, the kindergarten, the people that paid for kindergarten, did we keep the payment in hopes that the kids would get back to school, or is this something that would be refunded?
We haven't done any reimbursements yet because we don't know how long we're going to be out of school. So unless we do daily reimbursements, we don't know how long we're going to be out. So we have to wait and see when that is. We are, however, providing online learning for those students.
you fix it, please? Use a
Oh,
tablet.
there is, so that, okay.
Sorry?
Go ahead, Michelle, sorry.
Well, it's along the line of kindergarten, like all the students who's paid activity fees and whatnot.
Yeah.
Is that something potentially we would have to reimburse for spring sports?
I don't know. I don't even know if we'll have the money to reimburse, to be honest with you.
Well, Michelle, I think on that end, the kids that play a spring sport, I don't know about the music part, but the spring sports, I believe, they don't pay the fee until they play the sport. So we're
Yeah,
baseball.
spring fees are right after the first of the year.
Oh,
think.
wow, okay, I didn't know that. I thought
MIA
that-
did get together and they reconfigured the entire spring program to start on May 6th. But again, all of this is contingent upon coming back May 6th. If we don't, then that really changes everything.
And spring
If we had a definitive
All
date
of
for
them.
you, we could have a more definitive
Thank
answer
you.
on how we're proceeding. But because we don't, it's unfortunately, it's the great unknown. So I can't tell you if they're going to be playing
Thank you.
sports or not. I can't tell you
So
if we then pay coaches or if we refund fees. I don't know because I don't know if there'll be a season. I don't know if there'll be part of a season. I don't know if there'll be no season. We
Okay.
just don't know that yet.
So I just want to interject because as the host, I have some comments here from Marilyn, who is listening
Okay.
in.
Okay.
Marilyn has shared that they have paid the sports fees. And she is saying that we will need to refund, and most of the money is used for buses. So that's, I'm
Sorry,
just sharing
Chrissy,
with
I
you what
didn't hear
Marilyn
that
said.
whole thing. Can you repeat that, Chrissy?
Sure.
I apologize.
She said that they have, that students playing sports have paid already, and we will need to refund, is what she said. And that most money is used for buses. Most of the money is used for buses.
For the sporting buses
Yes,
or the music buses or whatever. Okay.
yes,
So that's presuming we do not come back on May 6th.
correct,
If we come back on May 6th, then there is a season. So
correct.
it's hard to say yet.
We do know that this is the great unknown, and, you know, everybody here are trailblazers right now, so, but thank you, I just wanted to ask that question. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, thanks, Dr. Cabral. Next up,
Did you spell?
calendar, discussion and possible vote to modify school calendar, Dr. Cabral.
Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. So there are two decisions for you this evening. Currently, the last day of school is Friday, June 19th. That includes one snow day that we had earlier this year. The commissioner has given us guidance about April vacation. So there are two choices first for April vacation. Districts can either work through April vacation or continue remote learning, or complete 185 school days. So, well, you need to complete 185 school days. For us, that's June 19th. That includes our 5 snow days. 1 that was already a snow day and 4 to be made up. We do have the option though of working through 4 of the 5 days in April vacation. Monday is a state holiday, so we don't have the option of working through that. But Tuesday through Friday is an option. So we discussed this, as you can see here, with the cabinet. We discussed this with the pre-K to 5 leadership team, curriculum leadership team, which is made up of educators, and the 6 through 12 leadership team. And the EEA reached out to their members, and out of 125 surveyed, 13 were interested in keeping it a vacation week. I understand reasons for wanting to maintain a week. It's been a very difficult time for everyone. I never thought it was possible that it would be harder to do work outside of school, but it certainly is. And, we have been very cognizant of the mental, emotional, physical health of all of our staff and students. Also, if we do come back on May 6th, it gives us 4 extra days in person with students at the end of the year. On the flip side, of course, we don't know we're coming back May 4th. We may not be coming back in May at all, to be honest with you. But also, we've launched, we're in our 2nd week of this online learning, and already today, between the teachers and the administrators that I've spoken to, they really feel that everybody's gotten momentum. And that this 2nd week already is a huge improvement from the 1st week. And that people are feeling a lot better about it. And to shut that down shortly after starting it would be, they're concerned about that. In addition, April vacation sounds like a great break at first, until we remember that it is not a vacation. People can't go anywhere. People can't do anything. It's not like a typical vacation with children where they can go to day camp, or they can go to the movies, or they can go out with friends. People would be relegated to their homes. Parents who are going to be continued working, most likely, are going to have students without guidance of what they can be doing each day. And unfortunately in Easton, I do have to report, we have had quite a big problem with this social distancing. We have had people jumping the fences of Moscato Field. We had, for example, we had some bleachers dragged over to the fence so people could climb over it easily. We've had, the Board of Health has had to drive by, the police department has had to drive by. They're talking about getting rid of the nets on the basketball hoops because people are playing basketball. So I do fear, especially if the weather is better, that it would also just be a great incentive for people to go outside and really violate the social distancing we've been trying so hard to achieve as a country. In addition, we just don't know what to expect when we get back to school. And to say having 4 days with children would be wonderful, I certainly agree. And I hope we have some sort of closure with children. I really do. I don't know that it will be in May, though. And even if we have more days, we're talking about, if everybody can remember, the very hottest days of the month when we're trying to stay in school and stay engaged. We also don't know what we're going to expect, even after these 3 weeks, and it might be much longer. We can't underestimate the social emotional impact that this is going to have on our students. This is not like going on summer vacation and coming back. Kids are not going to camp. Kids are not going to visit relatives. They're not working part-time jobs. They're not going to the town pool. They are not going to parks. This is going to have an impact like never before. And I don't think if we do come back on May 7th, we pick up and we just go like nothing happened. I think there's going to be a big adjustment for everybody. And so I'm not sure we should count on squeezing in whatever weeks we missed in whatever might be remaining at the end of school. I think we need to reconceptualize what that will mean, just like we're reconceptualizing what education means right now during this time. And so not only did the overwhelming majority of the teachers in the EEA agree, or the educators agree, that we should continue through April vacation. But the cabinet and both of the curriculum leadership teams also unanimously agreed that they would like to recommend to you that we continue working through April vacation, those 4 days, which would actually make the last day of school Monday, June 15th. And so that is our recommendation to you, and those are some of the reasons why.
Caroline?
Well, I would certainly be in favor of that myself, simply because, you know, constantly watching all of the news with the epidemiologists and the research scientists and infection control experts, I think that it's a real toss-up whether school will actually convene again, certainly by May 6th. So I think that this is at least giving us sort of a guaranteed 4 additional days of school for kids at a time when, as Dr. Cabral pointed out, there is some momentum, which I think is really nice to hear and also important as we move forward. So I would certainly be in favor of having the work continue through April vacation.
Michelle?
I completely agree. I think that we have to kind of operate under the assumption at this moment that we're not going back. And so how do we make those days of distant learning be most impactful and rigorous for the kids, our students, pre-K to 12. And as a teacher, I know how hard it is in a classroom to come back after a break and get children back into a routine and re-engaged and re-motivated. Speak nothing of that, we've also thrown a new platform at them, new rituals, new routines, new everything. And to stop that for 4 days, I just think we would spend more time trying to rebuild that again.
I also agree that the momentum is going during April vacation, and I think there's probably 3,200 kids in Easton that are ready to get back to school right now. So they would do anything to get back. It's not like a snow day anymore. So yes, I agree that the April vacation should continue. And the only thing about the Monday, I wish we could push it back to Friday, June 12th, you know, because Monday, it's like a Monday. But I think at this point, everybody would go back right now. Okay, Jackie.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like we just got into a groove and a schedule and some structure, and to kind of stop that. I mean, I'm talking from a perspective of a younger learner, but to stop that and then have to start again in a week when we're going to be here for a week. And as you said, it's not like we're going on a trip or we're going to the museum or we're going to the park. I think it would be not only disruptive for the learning, but I think socially and emotionally, it would be extremely disruptive. I'm completely in agreement that we should keep going over April vacation.
Jen?
I appreciate that you gathered all of this information for us, and it sounds like the right thing to do. So I have no objections to the argument to keep going through April vacation.
So would you like to make that a motion, Jen?
I sure would. All right. So I make a motion to, how do we want to word this? A motion to continue with remote education through April vacation, which would make the last day of the school year Monday, June 15th.
This is Caroline, second.
All those in favor, Caroline?
Caroline O'Neill, yes.
Michelle Durance, yes.
Nancy DeLuca, yes.
Jackie Wiseman, yes.
Jen Starr, yes.
Okay, and thank you, Dr. Cabral, for all that information.
Thank
Okay, next up is discussion and possible vote to approve the MOA with the EEA, but that's already been done, right, Dr.
Well, there's
Cabral?
there's just one more decision for you, sorry.
So
In
vote
terms
on
of the calendar, as the
Is that
school
the-
committee, you also have the option to extend the school year. So the last day being Monday, June 15th, that would be our 185th day, which the commissioner has called for. After June 15th, you can only extend the school year until July. That would give you 11 school days to add. However, I must remind you about the time of year with the heat, but beyond that, there are many fiscal considerations. If we work an extra 11 days, that means all staff need to be paid an additional 11 days and all bargaining units need to agree. I think that would be just about impossible for us to do. So I would recommend you don't extend the school year and keep the end of the school year June 15th.
I do have a question. I think if we go back and if the spring sports season starts, I think the MIAA end of the season was pretty late in June. Would us not being in school interfere with our ability for student athletes to participate
No.
in sports? Okay.
Okay, so do we need a vote to, about
No,
extending?
you would need a vote to extend it if you wanted to extend the school year.
Is anybody making a motion for that?
No, I don't see any benefit to that.
No, this is Jackie. I agree. I don't think we need to do that at this point.
Okay, so we can just move on to the next
Okay,
article. Okay, thank you.
sure.
So now we don't have to have a discussion regarding the EEA MOA, right?
No, you all received a copy of it. It was reviewed with the chair.
Yep.
Per legal guidance secured by the chair, I was able to sign that on your behalf. And so that was passed by the EEA and accepted by the district. Are there any questions about it?
No.
Okay, again, it was a very collaborative process. It went fine and we were able to, there are school districts right now that don't have that hammered out yet. And you can imagine how that's holding up the work that they're trying to do. So again, it was another example of great cooperation.
I
Okay,
think we just because we have I know we have people who are observing the meeting who might have no idea what this is addressing. Could we maybe
Sorry.
explain that for
Of course.
everybody else? Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
So even though employees are still working and we're still paying them, anybody who's in a bargaining committee is experiencing what is called a change in working condition. In this case, it's a change in working environment. So in other words, they did not bargain to work under these circumstances. And so what we needed to do was come up with a list of expectations for our major units, which we did for Unit A, which is our largest unit, paraprofessionals, Unit B, which is an administrative unit, and custodians. So we were able to come to agreements with all groups about what their ongoing responsibilities and expectations would be under this change of working environment.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
any other comments, questions? Okay, all right, so next will be the vote, for Joint Labor Management Committee representative. Go ahead, Dr. Cabral.
Okay, so part of the MOA or Memorandum of Agreement with the Easton Educators was it called for what I think is a good idea, a Joint Labor Management Committee with 3 representatives chosen from the EEA and 3 representatives chosen by the district. That is because of the unknown nature of this closure, right? So we don't know if we're going to be out through all of May. We don't know if we'll be out through the rest of the school year. We don't know if, heaven forbid, the fall will be compromised. We just don't know. And so this gives the opportunity for those 6 members to have a conversation about any changes to those expectations without doing a new MOA every time. So it gives the opportunity for fair representation to sit down and to discuss the impacts and what it means and how we can best support the unit to complete their work with their students. So part of this, I'm asking Chrissy to be a representative. I've asked a building administrator, the TBD, that we haven't determined who that's going to be, to represent building administration to participate, and we're asking a school committee member to participate. So you will need to vote on which member would like to be part of the Joint Labor Management Committee. Should it need to convene? We don't even know if it will need to convene, but we'll need a representative, or we're requesting a representative from school committee.
Nancy,
Go ahead, Caroline.
my thought would be, if she didn't mind, that maybe Jackie would be a good choice because she's on the negotiating team. So she's kind of up to date on the whole style of negotiating and the, kind of all of the issues and so on. And, she's just such a pleasant person to work with.
We're all pleasant, Carolyn.
Well, okay, that is
Really?
true. That is totally true. But, I
Well,
just,
Jackie, how do you feel?
That's fine with me.
Okay, I nominate Jackie Wiseman to be the representative on the Joint Labor Management Committee.
Caroline seconds.
All those in favor?
Caroline O'Neill, yes.
Michelle Durance, yes.
Nancy DeLuca, yes.
Jackie Wiseman, yeah.
Jen Starr, yes.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, congratulations, Jackie.
Oh, thank you.
Nancy, may I make another comment?
Yes.
Everyone is just delightful to work with. So I misspoke when I implied that Jackie.
Well, you know, whatever. That's just you, Caroline. It's okay. All right, so now we come up to public comment, and I guess I'm gonna go over to Chrissy.
Yeah, so I don't have anything in the chat, but if anybody has a question or would like to make a comment from the public, if you could please enter your comment into the chat now.
Okay, and while we can come, if somebody does make a comment or a question, just let us know, okay, Chrissy?
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Superintendent notes.
Great.
Dr. Capel.
Thanks. So under my notes tonight, because budget isn't here, but there was a recent development yesterday, actually, so I was unable to get this on, excuse me, on the agenda. But House 4617 was a bill that was passed. There are some, oh, sorry, I thought someone fell or something. There are some considerations and some budget impacts as a result. So I'm actually going to use two of Connor Reed's slides from his select board meeting because he had thought that this bill was going to be passed and then it was passed yesterday. So Monday night. So this is an act to address challenges faced by municipalities and state authorities resulting from COVID-19. It allows for a couple things. One, it allows for a postponement of town meeting, which the select board did vote for a postponement. The interesting thing is that we, again, have no idea when we will be able to have a town meeting, because even though they did allow for a postponement, they did not approve another recommendation, which was for some form of remote or virtual participation in town meetings. And so because that was not approved, it has kind of sent people scrambling and wondering how we were going to have a town meeting before the end of the fiscal year or June 30th. So if it becomes necessary to have a meeting after June 30th, of course, that's the next fiscal year. So what happens, it creates 1/12 budgeting. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, what they do is they take FY20 budget, which we're in right now, and they take 1/12 of that and they allocate it for the month of July. And then if we don't have a budget by then, they take 1/12 of that FY20 budget and allocate it for the month of August. Now, for us as a school district, Marilyn Director of Finance pointed out that would maybe be okay for us because the majority of our staff is paid again in September. And so even though, because typically just taking your FY20 budget and rolling it over wouldn't work because everybody gets a lane or a step change, or there's a across the board cost of living increase, or any of the contracted services always have an increase. So it would be impossible to maintain, but it gives us a little bit of a grace period. It would not be ideal, but it gives us a little bit of a grace period because obviously we can't operate without an FY21 budget once the staff starts. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. There are various other changes. Most of them are about permitting though, and taxes and things like that, that really only apply to the town. However, Apologize, these slides are lagging a little bit. However, it comes with some financial uncertainty, unfortunately, and this is probably the most difficult conversation of this meeting. We thought that FY20 was going to be difficult to finish out the year, but FY21 looks to be more upsetting. I just want to take you back for a second. If you remember when we rolled over just to have level service next year, level service with the contracted increases of level staffing, we were going to incur just over a 3% increase to our budget. And we were paring down quite a bit that we felt was essential needs that were identified by the staff in a very exhaustive process that they all worked very well in. And we were still coming up with just over 3% to keep things running the way they are now without going drastically backwards. Well, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as you can see, is projecting a multi-billion-dollar revenue shortfall as a result of the crisis, roughly 5% of their annual budget. You can see, or you can imagine, knowing that just a rollover of our staff was a 3% increase, what it would mean for us to get a 5% decrease. It would be operating next year with this year's budget minus 2%. It would be absolutely devastating. I can imagine very large class sizes at every level. I can imagine not being able to fund transportation. There are some very large problems with this scenario. And there was supposed to be a state meeting this morning. They had some technical difficulties, so it was canceled, and they have not rescheduled it until next week. So we're actually not going to get an indication, if at all, until next week. They are not willing to offer any numbers at this point. They were asked pointedly if we could at least get that information, since the technical difficulties prevented the meeting from happening. And we were told, no, you cannot have that. We don't have that yet. So hopefully next week we'll have this information. You know, have many of you having been through this process, that typically the budget is done within a couple of weeks of now. It's certainly done in this month. And so between finding out what this means in terms of what is available to us from the state, determining what that's going to mean for our budget next year, it could be 10-day turnover, which in the best scenario of being in school requires some quick turnaround on some meetings, some conversations, bringing different scenarios to you to make decisions of things. It could be extremely problematic. I'm not really sure how to say this in a hopeful way, because I would say I would be positively giddy if we were able to get 3% next year that we were hoping to get to limp by, that I was so devastated presenting to you at our school committee meeting. If we got that, I would be out of my mind giddy for next year. I don't even know if that's going to be a possibility, but I will not know that for another week, maybe 2. We literally don't have one number except this potential 5%. So I cannot offer anything beyond that. The other problem is that the municipal bond market is in turmoil, which challenges our capital projects, our ability to issue bonds and bans, which means everything that we asked for in the capital budget has been tabled except for the technology. And that's because we're loaning out so many devices. We have no idea if we're going to get them back, what condition we're going to get them back, if they're even going to be usable. We have almost 100 devices out right now, and we didn't even ask for 100 devices in capital, so it's going to be less than that. So we're hoping to just maintain what we had, but everything else in capital has been canceled. The local impact so far, now this is in Connor, this is in the words of our town administrator. immediately they received DOR, or the Department of Revenue, authorization for COVID-19 deficit spending. That includes anything that is directly related to COVID mitigation. So for example, overtime for emergency medical personnel, supplies, things of that nature. What we're facing most direly right now is the payment of our staff. Like I mentioned before, that typically is paid out of revenue. And so that is not reimbursable currently under this revenue. Excuse me, under this this federal funding. So we don't see how we're going to realize relief from that, unfortunately. FY 2020, or the budget we're in right now, spending and non-emergency personnel hiring has been frozen. As of February 13th, I froze the school budget indefinitely. So all of the schools were aware that we are purchasing nothing else except the food and the payment of staff. If anything comes in terms of a donation, we have had turnarounds, but that's it. FY 21 budget, it was already going to be difficult. Now, as Connor notes, it's basically being redesigned from scratch. If we do have to cut 5%, that means we have to look at the whole thing differently. We have to change our entire approach to education. The finance team of the town is tracking the March actuals. They're waiting to see, they're facing shortfalls too on the town side, as you can imagine. And so they hope to get information next week, as I mentioned. Mr. Reed is calling this the most difficult budget since the 2008 recession. It could potentially be worse, however, because many of you will remember that right before the recession, there was an operational override, which I have been in awe about how Easton was able to get through that period, 2008 to approximately 2011, because the districts I was serving in were letting go of up to 15% of their staff. Easton was able to weather that because they had an operational override. Obviously, we're starting in a difficult position. I presented a difficult FY21 budget to you to begin with. And now there are projections on the town side of a recession-like situation. Any staff members will see that the town is trying any effort to save money. So they recently just put out a health insurance incentive plan to incentivize people to either change their plan or to opt out entirely for a temporary incentive. Other than that, this budget process over the last 3 years has been a series of cuts and reductions. There really is nothing else to trim, as you are well aware of on the school side. So this bill, unfortunately, I'm not sure what kind of relief it's going to offer us, because everything on our side is closed. We're just looking to continue paying staff. And so far, as I noted, that is not considered a COVID-related expenditure to be paid for with the stimulus money that we think we might be receiving. Unfortunately, I don't have any more specific information on what that will mean for the budget for next year until perhaps next week.
This is Jackie. Do you know, is that meeting scheduled already?
It was supposed to be 10 o'clock this morning, and they said they're rescheduling it to next week. So I'm presuming it's the same day of the week, 10 o'clock in the morning next week.
This is Jen. Do you know, especially with what's going on in the bond market, are there any implications for the school building project?
We do have an upcoming school planning committee meeting. I did ask that question. They said that we happen to be, if there's any silver lining anywhere, we happen to be in a sweet spot of sorts right now, because we aren't out to bid just yet. Excuse me, construction hasn't started, so potentially being halted. And they just did the estimate
Value engineering, yep.
They just did the estimates for the
Right.
design portion, and we were anticipated to have to value engineer, and they're saying based on what the design estimates came in at, that they do not expect that we will have a value engineering exercise. So that is one positive in all of this. Again, depending on how long this lasts, will it have an implication? We aren't really sure. We are estimated to go out to bid right at the first of the year. So hopefully we'll be through this by then. You know as well as I do, there is the potential that this could resurface around this time again next year. That could be, that could potentially hurt us. I don't know in what way yet, but you know, that remains to be seen, obviously. But as of right now, we do not see that there's an impact on the school project.
Okay, thanks.
Nancy here. I have a question. In 2015, with that huge amount of snow that we had, wasn't there something that happened because every town had such a huge bill for snow removal and, you know, the DPW workers and didn't they give us something that would let us pay over 3 years? Is there anything like that in the works that you
There
can
is.
push
They
it
are
out?
allowing expenditures from FY20 to be paid over the next 3 years. But with our projection of what next year and potentially the year after look like, that doesn't really provide us a lot of relief potentially, but it is a possibility.
And that's,
Just for FY20 expenses.
yeah. And that's the other thing. I know you said this year's, of course, was already bad. Next year's gonna be bad. But I even think that the year after, with all this going on with COVID and the stock market and everything, I almost think the following year, the 22 year, is really gonna be like up in the air. The other thing I was gonna ask, and I don't know, maybe I'm off base here, CPA funds. You know, those are out of our taxes. They go to, you know, promote the green space in Easton.
Right.
Is there any way that those funds can be put back into the town budget?
That has legislative implications. That would have to be changed. The legislature would have to change that. That is very, money is very specifically earmarked for very specific purposes. So that would be a legislative decision. They would have to do that.
Okay, just curious, because instead of splitting everything out, put it all together. Okay, any other questions for Dr. Cabral?
Well, I'd just like to say, Nancy, it's Caroline. That's something you might want to suggest to your legislators. It's actually an idea. I mean, I know that it's absolutely prohibited at this point to absorb CPA funding into the regular budget. I mean, that is just not something that you can do at all legally now, but you know, these are pretty desperate times. So
Right.
It's not a crazy idea. I mean, if it could be, you know, passed by the legislature.
All right, thank you. Michelle, anything?
No.
Okay, Jackie?
No, nothing right now.
No, and Jen?
Nothing additional, thanks.
All right, is there anything else on your superintendent notes, Dr. Cabral?
No, because I'm going to leave the positive part of the news to Chrissy, so that we can end with something positive, because I know she's got some great updates on what's been happening on the academic side of the house. So I apologize that wasn't more hopeful. We are on top of it, believe me, and we're going to do everything within our power to mitigate any effects. But I'll let Chrissy describe some of the that are happening.
And every town, every city and town in the country is dealing with this. So it's just depressing. All right, Chrissy, Assistant Superintendent notes, make us smile.
So before that, I do have two people that commented in the chat.
Go ahead.
Should I read that now?
Yes, please.
So the first one is from D. Stevens. I'm assuming, but I
Don't
shouldn't
assume.
assume that it might be, don't assume. Okay, so it says from D. Stevens, but it doesn't say The person didn't write their name and where they live, but it just says thank you
Oh.
to all. Okay, so I thought that that was appropriate to read. And the next one is, says, this is Jessica Dubin of 65 Wedgewood Drive in Northeaston. I wanted to thank Dr. Cabral and Mrs. Pruitt and the entire school committee for all of your efforts during this difficult time. As the mother of a 9th and 7th grader, I very much appreciate it and everything all the teachers have been doing for our kids.
Thank you, Ms. Dubin, very much.
That was
Okay.
lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. That feedback is appreciated, and
So-
I'll make sure that I share that with our team.
Okay,
Yes.
so on to your assistant superintendent notes.
So we are, as you know, in the second week of our remote learning, PK through 12, that we are suggesting is required. And I know Dr. Cabral mentioned a lot of this, but I just wanted to go over some of it a little bit more in depth. In grades PK through 5, all remote learning plans are posted to our EPS website every Sunday evening by 5 p.m. We heard you parents, you shared and said that you would like to have them earlier. So we definitely adjusted what we were doing to meet your needs. Remote learning plans are set up with suggestions for each day. However, we do understand and acknowledge that families are in various situations and will need to alter those plans, and that's fine. And I just want to share that the reason we're using the term required is to stress the importance of participating in the work so that we don't see regression while we're not in school. We also understand that many families are in various situations due to this unprecedented time. And while participation is very important, we ask that it occur to the extent of your family's ability. We know that when we return to school, we will need to make adjustments in our instruction for all of our students. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. In grades 6 through 12, we have a schedule for assignments going out to students. We decided to spread out the assignments throughout the week by content areas. In PK through 5, it's a little different because we can suggest, here's Monday with what you could do for English and math and social studies and science. But in grades 6 through 12, the teachers have, the students have multiple teachers. So we scheduled the assignments to go out through various days throughout the week. This way, a parent or a student wouldn't receive 30 assignments on one day. They would rather receive 5 assignments for 2 content areas instead of 6 content areas with 5 assignments. So, for example, if your child is receiving all the math assignments on Tuesday, their week would go Tuesday to Tuesday with the math assignments. So we did kind of pace that out so it wasn't overwhelming for the parents. These assignments are being shared through Google Classroom. That is the fortunate thing that we have for our students in grades 6 through 12, that the Google Classroom alerts go right to their email addresses. So please make sure that they are checking their Easton Public School email addresses. And also all staff are connecting with students weekly. We are using the Google Meet platform for those teachers that are using video conferencing with students and not the Zoom platform. So I don't know if you've seen in the news, there have been some hackers on Zoom. We decided to stick with, since we are a Google district, with the Google Meet platform. And then, as Dr. Cabral mentioned, staff are participating in a variety of activities during what is their new normal workday. And those include professional development, planning, staff meetings, connecting with students, etc. And we also need to remember that these professionals are doing this work with families of their own at home. I have gone into many virtual meetings where their own children have been on their laps, and because they're watching their children, their younger children are, I can't imagine having to do this with younger children. My children are a little bit more independent. I cannot stress how proud, I'm going to try not to cry, how proud I am of the staff. The amount of things that they have been able to do within such a short amount of time has been remarkable. Easton, you have one dedicated staff, and I am so honored to be part of such a hardworking and dedicated group of people. These people are phenomenal, and they are so dedicated to your children, and they miss them immensely. They have been, many of them have been putting your children before their own families. And the fact that Dr. Cabral, kept mentioning the amount that we've been able to do in such a short time, our teachers didn't even take time to process all this information themselves. They plugged forward because they knew that your kids needed them. And I just want to take this time just to say thank you to them. They are everybody, custodians, paraprofessionals, teachers, nurses, cafeteria workers, administrators, everyone has been 100% on board. We are far beyond other districts, and I'm just so proud of all that they've been doing. So thank you.
I wanted to say that this is Jackie, the 4th grade teachers posted a picture up.
Yeah.
And I saw that and it was just brought tears to my eyes. It was just awesome.
If you're not on Twitter, I really recommend that as a platform. A lot of students are posting. We had such a fun spirit week with all of our 80 students. Autism awareness, slideshows. The schools are sending slideshows home with messages to their students, just of love, and they just miss them so much, and they're worried about them.
Yes.
We're all worried about them. That first week was really about social emotional connections and making sure we reach out to kids. Every single adult is reaching out to multiple students. So students are getting multiple adults reaching out to them on a regular basis. This is about trying to make sure that they're secure this is a traumatic time for many people. It's very difficult for some of us to imagine what a household is like in a different environment. Some of these kids are independent. Some of these kids are working with not much support. Some are not being allowed to use the computers, or, as I said before, they're facing some really tough situations like domestic violence or food insecurity. So Chrissy put it best. We just have a phenomenal staff, and we can't say enough how humbled and blessed we are to work alongside them, truly.
Okay, Chrissy, did you have anything else to add? That was marvelous, but do you have anything else before we comment?
That's all I have for now.
All right.
For now. No, I'm kidding.
So you could make your comment to Chrissy or Leisha as you go through. Caroline, you're first.
Okay, I just have a couple little comments. First of all, I've been thinking a lot about, students of all ages and how much they're missing. I mean, one maybe little positive that's coming out of this is that I keep seeing comments on social media from parents basically talking about how their kids just can't wait to get back to school and, to be with their peers and teachers. But I've been thinking a lot about what they're missing. I mean, of course, we know that what we don't know is whether school will even start up again this year. And I know there's a lot of concern about that, rightfully so, because the information that's coming out about COVID seems to indicate that what's really working is this social distancing strategy, of course, along with washing hands, but the social distancing really seems to be the key. So it's really up in the air whether people can stop pursuing that strategy as early as May. I would frankly be pretty doubtful that that is the case. So that we're going to have a lot of kids who are going to miss a lot of really important traditions and special events in their lives. And I just think it's so sad. But on the other hand, right now we're trying to save lives. So that's important. I'm very disappointed to hear that we have so many individuals that are disregarding social distancing, particularly apparently maybe teens, kids. It's sad to think that they can't, even though they may feel invincible because they're young, that they can't be thinking of the risks that they're posing to other people. And I would really encourage parents to talk to their kids, particularly their teens, and remind them that they could be putting other people at risk as well as themselves. Certainly teens are not totally immune. There's certainly a lower risk to them, but that doesn't mean that they're totally immune. But beyond that, I think it's important for them to think of this as a whole world community, and to be thinking about other people when they pursue those really unacceptable practices at this point. Okay, that's my little lecture for today.
I think that is a very important point. I do want to point out that when I inquired about the groups that were participating in those activities, I was told that they were largely in the 20 to 30 age group.
Yeah, well, we know that people don't have a fully developed prefrontal lobe until age 26. We would like them to prove us wrong.
I just want to say, I'm not saying that none of our teenagers are participating in that, but the majority seems to be the something age group for some reason.
Well, that may be parental influence, which is really a good thing.
Okay, Michelle?
Yeah, I actually have a shout out, even though they're not in school, to the robotics team who's been doing some community service. They have been collecting masks and the face shields, and they even donated their own team supply of protective eyewear. One of the mentors hooked up St. Luke's Hospital with a company to do 3D eyewear. And the masks and the various eyewears that they've collected have gone to a local nursing home and also to St. Luke's.
That's
So
great.
they've been really busy trying to help, the first responders out in the field.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. I would just like to say that our next meeting is Tuesday, April 21st, 6 p.m. Zoom. On the agenda, Lynn, COVID-19 update, budget, and school choice discussion. This is our only meeting of the year to have an open meeting about school choice, and that's been posted in the newspaper. And my other comment, I mean, I agree with what everybody's saying. The other thing is, and I know Dr. Cabral brought it up earlier, you know what? You're home. And if you're watching TV or you're on your computer, those census things come up every 30 seconds.
Yes.
Fill out the census. And if you just talk to your friends, it takes 5 seconds to do it, 5 minutes. So
So important. Thank you.
fill out the census and help Easton get what it deserves, because right now, even before COVID, we were on the downslope with the state. Okay, Jackie.
I just want to thank again Dr. Cabral and Mrs. Pruitt and all the administrators and teachers and staff for all that they've done in such a short period of time to help get our kids back on learning, and to comfort the parents as well, and help the members of our community that have needed it. We really appreciate your efforts. And I know as kind of a member of the school committee, I almost feel helpless because we want to be able to help you all with your efforts, and you should just know that we are here for you as well. And if there's anything that we can do for you, please let us know.
We definitely appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I echo what Jackie said. It's knowing all the work that had to be done and that it's not our role to do it has been kind of hard, knowing how tirelessly you and all the school staff have been working. And the Mass Association of School Committees had shared something, a notice, might have been on, I don't know if it was an email or Facebook or whatever, but it basically said, what's your role as a school committee? And one of the things was basically get out of the way, let your administrators do their jobs, because this is their area of expertise and they know what they're doing, and let them lead and offer support. So again, we're not doing the heavy lifting, but just tremendously appreciate all that you've been able to pull off. It's really incredible. And then I also wanted to just share some feedback that my kids have heard, well, my high school athlete has heard from both outdoor coaches quite often about, staying off the fields and not practicing together. So they have been really, really consistent and emphatic about, if you want to have any shot of having your spring season, practice alone. We appreciate your efforts, but get off the field. So I appreciate that they've been echoing the social distancing messaging, as have, all the teachers and all the school staff that my kids have interacted with. So it's helpful to have that messaging reinforced, because it's certainly challenging to say, no, you're not going to see your friends for, I don't know how long, but, enjoy your Google Classrooms. So,
Yeah, and I'm not sure how many students are actually going to watch this school committee meeting, but I would like to take every opportunity that I can to remind them that we're thinking about them often, especially those that would have activities and end of the year events, our seniors. We know that this is tremendously difficult for them. Obviously, we would never do anything to want to compromise their experience, but this is literally a life or death situation. It's something that is an opportunity for us to share with them problem solving and resilience, and let them know that they are going to get through this, and they're going to get through this just fine. And we're going to help them do that. We'll make sure that they have the memorable experiences that they deserve. And it's going to be more memorable because of the circumstances, frankly. And we're thinking about them, and we can't wait to welcome them back whenever that is. And that we have lots of resources for them, not just academic, but also social, emotional. We're all there for one another. And the important thing is to understand that no matter how isolating this might feel, there is a group of people around them that loves them very, very much, not just at home, but also in their school department. So to encourage them to keep reaching out to us. We're here. We're in little tiny boxes, but we're here. And we're going to stay here for the long haul.
I have to figure out how to work that box thing. Well, it just keeps denying me. Apparently, my device doesn't like my picture.
Wow. Maybe you can get a Chromebook from the high school or one of the students. Figure it
I
out.
know, my husband's been telling me, why do you have these old devices?
There you go. See if you can borrow one. All right. At this time, and I also want to thank, before we adjourn, I want to thank Lynn Souza and Jason Daniels from ECAT for helping us today. And we'll see you next
Joe
Tuesday.
Borman from ECAT.
Who is it, Joe?
Joe.
Bowman. Thanks, Joe. So anyway, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the school committee meeting.
This is Jackie. I'll second.
Okay.
Caroline O'Neill, yes.
Michelle Durance, yes.
Nancy DeLuca, yes.
Jackie Wiseman, yes.
Jen Starr, yes.
And everybody have a happy Passover, Easter, whatever you celebrate. Happy. And let's get out of this COVID thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Hi.